Hello, folks, and welcome to Leaky Weekly, the show where we discuss the last week or month or so, who's counting, of news in the world of data leaks, cybercrime, and the dark web. Quick disclaimer that a lot of what we talk about on the show comes from the word of threat actors themselves or journalists on very emerging stories, so take all claims with a healthy degree of skepticism. And I hope you dusted off your Dostoevsky this week, because the theme of today's episode is crime and punishment. I've got a lot of notes on today's stories. I could fill up a novel with these things. I won't show you at risk of spoilers. And let's get into today's stories. For our first story, the very well-known hacktivist who goes by the username USDoD, no affiliation to the department, has been arrested by Brazilian authorities following a storied career of leaking data stolen from Infraguard, Airbus, CrowdStrike, and many other victims along the way, according to Cyber News. Most recently, he attempted to broker the sale of NPD's massive database of personal records, which we covered on the show, which kind of put him back on the map. The wonderful folks over at Predictalab showcased a trail of breadcrumbs that led them to identifying USDoD's actual identity, which I think is a very valuable exercise for us to go through here. So it starts on USDoD's Twitter account, which is now banned. But when it was active, the username was Equation Corp, and the description of the account read, "I protect the hive. When the system is out of balance, I correct it," which Predictalab points out is a quote from the 2024 movie The Beekeeper. Searching this quote in the description of other social media profiles revealed an Instagram account under the name 0 Day Corp. The 0 Day Corp account went by the name Luan Goncalves, and had an actual picture of the owner of the account, who was calling himself 0 Day Corp, as the profile photo. Now, Baptiste, the CEO of Predictalab, who put this together, pointed out that this Instagram profile link is also embedded in a SoundCloud profile whose username is LBG91 and uses the name Luan. This SoundCloud profile reveals the photo of Luan that, when reverse image search, points to a Medium account registered to a Luan BGS22. So this, along with many other data points, connected this same Luan identity to the USDoD threat actor accounts. During the chaos surrounding the outing of his identity, which he claims was done by CrowdStrike, he said in an interview with HackRead, "So congrats to CrowdStrike for doxing me. They're late to the party. Intel 421, which I think he means Intel 471, plus a few other companies had already doxed me before the Infraguard hack. I want to say thank you. It is time to admit I got defeated and I will retire my jersey. Yes, this is Luan speaking. I won't run. I'm in Brazil, the same city where I was born. I am a huge, valuable target, and maybe I will talk soon to whoever is in charge, but everyone will know that behind USDoD, I'm a human like everyone else. To be honest, I wanted this to happen. I can't live with multiple lives, and it is time to take responsibility for every action of mine and pay the price. Doesn't matter how much it may cost me. This is not my end. Thank you. See you around. Don't worry, Brazilian authorities. I'm coming to meet you. I'm not a threat. In fact, I can do much for my country." Now, the arrest came sometime after the unmasking and after this message from them. The unmasking and de-anonymizing was around August 23rd, and the arrest was around October 16th. So there was a little window where he was kind of waiting around, twiddling his thumbs, and I think a lot of people in the security research community were curious. What happened? Did he get picked up? Was he waiting? And evidently, we know the Brazilian authorities were potentially putting together an arrest. Now, I think the message he put out is pretty interesting. He says he will take responsibility for every action and pay the price and can do much for his country. Perhaps he's suggesting that he'll cooperate with law enforcement and give them information to sort of right his wrongs, but who knows? It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the Brazilian courts. For our next story, the alleged hacker behind the very talked about campaign, which used stolen credentials from Stealer logs to target over 160 Snowflake tenants that did not have two-factor enabled and had a list of victims like Ticketmaster, Santander, Advanced Auto Parts, Neiman Marcus, just to name a few, was arrested in Canada, according to 404 Media. Now, the arrest ties back to an individual named Connor Moucka, who's alleged to go by the username Judische. I'm sure this is the incorrect pronunciation, but forgive me. And Waifu, among some other names they mentioned. This username should be very familiar, as they've claimed to compromise a whole slew of targets kind of throughout 2024, including major banks, AT&T, several victims who ended up being associated with the snowflake thing, really sprinkled over the course of the year. Also, Connor was arrested on request of extradition by the United States. Most news sources are guessing that his final destination is to face trial in the U.S. Also important to note, in the indictment, Connor was not acting alone. According to the indictment uncovered by 404 Media, there were co-conspirators, one of which was named in the indictment as John Binns. That name should also sound very familiar. John Binns was arrested in Turkey after the U.S. indicted him for a hack of T-Mobile in 2021. The indictment claims he was involved in the Snowflake-related AT&T breach with Connor. The AT&T breach is where the threat actor claims to have compromised call logs and were paid $300,000 by AT&T to have the criminals delete their copy of the data. This is a story we also covered on the show a while ago. Now, Mandiant said in a statement on the arrest that Connor had proven to be one of the most consequential threat actors of 2024. And I think that's indisputably true. They also added, this particular case is significant because they've picked up one of the tiny minority that causes disproportionate harm. I think that's a super compelling note to add, and has been true for a long time. On many cybercrime forums, there are hundreds of thousands of registered members, and the forums are in the news every few weeks with some new major data leak or incident. But if you read the posts, it's the same small couple of groups of users doing a dramatic majority of the posting. Leading up to the arrest, in conversation with Brian Krebs, Connor confessed that he thinks law enforcement is closing in on him. Now, this is a common thread you'll see when threat actors, especially young ones, can kind of tell that they're in the sights of law enforcement and expect to be arrested soon, is they will frantically message journalists that they know and friends that relationships they've made across their communities, asking if they think they're going to be arrested, asking their friends if they think they're going to be arrested, asking around for what they think prison will be like, what sentence they think they'll have, and sort of starting to express some possible regret. He also claimed to Brian Krebs to have made at least $4 million from the Snowflake extortions. He also added that these kinds of companies, along with business process outsourcing and MSPs, managed service providers, are frequently a target of him and his group. And from Snowflake alone, they exported around 100 terabytes of data and only disclosed publicly the victims that did not pay when they attempted to extort them. Now, the other character here, John Binns, is a fascinating one. He moved to Turkey, then attracting the attention of authorities there after trying to buy a stinger. Anyway, he's been around for a while, operated a large botnet for a time, which evidently Connor used, and is currently sitting in a Turkish prison, allegedly fighting extradition at all costs. So quite the development, and not the first arrest of an alleged member of Scattered Spider. This year, Noah Michael Urban, a.k.a. King Bob, who was from Palm Coast, Florida, and Tyler Buchanan, a.k.a. Tyler B., from Dundee, Scotland, were both arrested. And we'll follow this story to see what gets reported as the extradition process continues to progress. For our third story, Operation Magnus has compromised the infrastructure used by the RedLine and Meta InfoStealer families, two major InfoStealer variants in the cybercrime world. And shortly after the infrastructure was taken down, authorities conferred charges against a Russian citizen alleged to be the administrator. So Eurojust coordinated a takedown of 3 C2 servers located in the Netherlands, 2 domains used by the operation, and Belgian authorities arrested 2 suspects, one of which remains in custody. And the operation managed to take down several Telegram channels used by the operation to communicate with affiliates, to sell licenses, to support customers, and do all of these things for both RedLine and Meta InfoStealer families. The first time this backend was discussed publicly was actually at a conference talk in 2023 by Mathieu Lavoie, co-founder and CTO at Flare, you guessed it, and Alexander Cote, a malware researcher at ESET. In their research, they analyzed the panels and backends of RedLine specifically and ended up finding several strong similarities that we will talk about in much more detail in a separate upcoming video that we're very excited about. And lo and behold, they were correct. The law enforcement operation tied them all back to the same Russian citizen and the same servers, which have now been taken down. If I had to guess, this is not the last thing we'll hear on the operation, as across the screen in the video posted by law enforcement to the Operation Magnus site, which we'll link in the description, are a list of usernames. They say this around the same time they mention VIP users, and they also say, "We are looking forward to seeing you soon," with a handcuff moving graphic. So we'll see if anything comes of that. And for our last story, a slew of massive data leaks are continuing to be released by a user Nameless on breach forums. Nameless is the username, by the way. I'm not saying that they have no name. News outlets are alleging the data is associated with MOVEit, and have also started to guess that the data might be associated with the Clop ransomware group. Now, as a refresher on MOVEit, around June 2023, a very popular file transfer service called MOVEit was the target of an exploit. It was a 9.8 CVSS, a critical vulnerability that basically allowed unauthenticated access to the MOVEit product. And the reason MOVEit started to be affiliated with these leaks by Nameless is because they're literally mentioned in the post, along with Clop is literally mentioned in several of the leaks. Now, Clop is a ransomware group. People started to speculate that Nameless was a member and made connections between Nameless and Clop and MOVEit. But interestingly, and counter to the narrative around MOVEit and Clop, Nameless has been posting databases to breach forums for free for a long time. For example, in April of this year, they posted a database leak for a particular company. Shortly after that, the company announced they were hacked, and Nameless clarified afterwards that they did not hack them. They found those files in a SQL backup sitting in an open AWS bucket, and then even linked their bucket in the post. Nameless went on to clarify across several threads that they are not affiliated with any groups and are not a hacker. They just poke around the internet, pulling files from ransom leaks, from open cloud storage locations, FTP servers, exposed MongoDB servers, and they clean that data up and post it to breach forums for use by cyber criminals. So if that is true, none of what they're posting is hitting the internet for the first time. It's just being curated and called out. So maybe it was in a massive 2 terabyte ransom leak, but no one bothered to actually download the whole thing and scroll through the hundreds of thousands of files in there to see what was interesting. And I guess if what they're saying is true, they did. They downloaded the ransom leaks, they downloaded the buckets, they downloaded the whatever, and actually went through all of it to find interesting data to then post to breach forums. So the reason Clop and MOVEit are involved, Clop used MOVEit in a lot of its campaigns. You can read all about that on several interesting pieces of research. So MOVEit is not being exploited by Nameless. As they allege, they are just downloading things from places including Clop's data leak site and pulling the data out of there. So MOVEit was involved, but by Clop and a long time ago. The list of leaks they have posted is already very long, with high-profile government and corporate names on the list, and they claim they will continue posting these leaks until governments and corporations start handling sensitive data responsibly. Nameless claims they have a lot more to post, and as of the day of recording, are still actively posting. They posted several times today. They also claim to be avenging Connor Goodwolf, which is a researcher who's having a very public dispute with the city of Columbus, Ohio, after clarifying that the city was in fact a victim of a ransomware attack and that the ransom leaks data has been posted online by the threat actor and is accessible, which was counter to the city's claim that the data was encrypted and not usable. And if you've listened to this show before, you're probably tired of hearing me talk about that story, so I will stop now. I think this is just the beginning of this saga and potentially the start of a larger conversation around best practices when storing data online using cloud storage providers. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Leaky Weekly. This show is brought to you by Flare, the world's easiest to use and most comprehensive cybercrime database that integrates into your security program in 30 minutes. Sign up for our free trial, linked in the podcast description to try it for yourself, and I will see you on the next one.